Zoey would promise never to get back together. Zoey would recognize Kodo was abusing them, but would get back together anyway, and then break up, get back together, break up, have toxic shit.
Like, Keith obviously has done a lot of shit to me. Like, some shit that isn't even public.
From what I was told from Keith, like, they said they tried making a polyamorous relationship.
And for a fact, I know that Zoey indeed probably still has those images of CP.
He did know my age. He knew I was 12. I had told him the first week that we had known each other.
Keith streamed Shannon's browser one time. They were both sharing browsers. They're like, they saw Shannon's search history, and it was full of zoo porn.
Well, folks, I tried to keep my promise. I really, really did. However, the last thing I'm going to be called is a liar regarding this situation, and I also don't appreciate people using my authority and stance as a good person on this platform to try and reconnect people with their old friends and to proceed to take all of that trust I had in that person getting better and throwing it into the dumpster. I'm tired of being on the sidelines while my name not only gets tarnished, but also a lot of unspoken things are not being put out to the public for them to know. I want to mention I'm not simply making this video for me. So many people have been affected by these people, and it's gotten to the point where a lot of things have gone unsaid about these individuals. I'm not here to cause drama. I'm simply here to give an outlet to their side and my side of things. Sit back, y'all. This is going to be a long video as I try to cover everything that has happened since my last update on Kodomodachi or Mirth. Before I jump into the video officially, I'd like to give credit to an individual named Blooper, who made my Red Knight character for videos like this. And he also has a little message for us.
Hey, thanks for the shout out, buddy. Okay, so I appeared in this guy's video. He's somewhat popular. Gotta get a good line out. I got it. Insert funny and relatable quote here that is very funny and relatable that everyone will like.
Okay, so is there anything else you would like to...
Okay, bye.
Alrighty then. Well, thank you for the character. In all seriousness though, folks, today I'm going to be talking to y'all about 4 different individuals. Shannon Sunday, BombasticHype or Keith, Kodomodachi or Mirth, and Zoey, who has gone under multiple names like Zoey the Catboy, Sunny, and a few other names. What I will be bringing up will mostly be new information, but of course there might potentially be old information mixed into here for context. I would be trying to do the following with this vid. Try to show how these people are connected, what they have done, and why they seriously need to consider mental health. I have to say, I am disappointed in making this vid because I genuinely want to believe that at least some of them could get better. But witnessing and hearing the atrocities that have been committed by them, I believe it's time for us to talk about them in more detail. Today, I'm not actually alone in this. However, I will be backed up by a few people and their testimonies. I will be assisted by a few people, including Absolute Inksanity.
Yeah, my name's Ian. Some people also call me Inksanity, Absolute Inksanity. Just various names I've gone by. I was mainly a friend of Zoey. We met in Kodomodachi's public Discord server. We actually met when we first started talking, like when Zoey and Kodo broke up, and Zoey was publicly in like the public channels going publicly like expressing to like people within the call suicidal thoughts and suicidal intent, and that's where I met them.
Vive,
refer to me as Vive, because that's what most of my friends. Oh no! I'm so sorry! I thought you were an enemy! I'm so sorry! Oh, I feel bad. Oh, okie dokie. So the situation began back in 2021. So far, everything was normal. I joined Kodomodachi's server because out of pure spite of due to being in an old group I used to hang out with, they told me I should go make some more friends. So I did. So I went to Kodomodachi's old server, which I used to be a staff member in for a short time before the fucking server went kaput.
T5.
I met them December 28th, 2021, I think, in the Golden Apple public server, which that's a David Baby fan mod. I remember I met them in a VC in that server, I think.
Stubby.
Originally, I just started watching Zoey's streams. So, I started watching his streams, back when Mirth still went by Kodomodachi, however you say it. And then I enjoyed it, right? So I watched his streams, and then, I stopped watching for a while because I had to do school stuff, but I got taken out of school, and this was around, I'd say September or October, and then I just started watching his streams more often, and I made fan art for him a lot, so, he contacted me on, Twitter, and then he asked if we wanted to be friends on Discord, and I'm like, sure, okay.
And a few others who wish to remain anonymous at this point.
How I knew Zoey, I met him off another app outside of Discord. That was before I didn't have Discord. I met him off a reading website called Wattpad or whatever.
I was watching Mirth quite a while back because I had liked the idea of in a boyfriend, and I believe it was something to do with the fun-sized witty mod. But I believe that Kodomodachi made their own version of it. So Kodomodachi eventually released a Discord server. It was a Discord server for their projects, and I joined that Discord server, and my experience was very mixed.
I will also be assisted by Callio, who helped in giving me lots of information regarding Shannon Sunday and BombasticHype or Keith. Remember, these are testimonies, so take them with a grain of salt at the end of the day. These people are some of the ones that were closest to these people, however, and with the evidence I will provide to you today, I think it'll become very clear that a lot of their stories add up. Without further ado, let's talk about the first individual, Shannon Sunday. Shannon Sunday is someone I have talked about briefly in another video of mine, so if you would like a refresher, I would implore you to check out that video or Toastify's video on him. A lot was brought up regarding him, but unfortunately, I don't think anyone could have guessed just how bad things were with him. You see, the allegations against Shannon were that he was dating and grooming a minor, something that Kodomodachi was accused of as well, and while this is definitely not a scapegoat for Mirth's actions, as far as we know, Mirth never sent nudes to a minor, but Shannon cannot say the same. Let's backtrack here for a second. I should mention that at one point I was asked to come into a server that had both him and another person I will be briefly talking about a bit later, Keith, within it. Now, the server was something I was not fully ready for, if I'm being honest. I knew sort of what I was getting into, but things got overwhelming very fast. You see, Zoey, who I will also be talking about a little bit later in the video, had originally invited me to the server to help them with a document against Shannon, because not everyone knew the truth about him to the full extent that we all knew about him. Of course, Zoey ended up leaving the whole document to me, and he also deleted it, but that's for a later topic in this video. Anywho, Shannon's misdeeds stretch far beyond what we thought at first. As I showed off at first, I had no intention of bringing this to the public. Exposing him was my last priority because of the serious nature of everything that happened here. I wanted to initially gather the evidence of everything that he did to Keith. which unfortunately was a lot. Get all of the Discord messages together, report him to Discord and authorities. Then we'd let everyone know what kind of sick individual he was after everything happened. My main concern though was to make sure he never hurt another minor again. Of course, I wasn't too sure how well things would go since this all happened online, but this was grounds for some kind of legal action at least, especially with what he was doing with Keith, which I guess I should get into now. This is going to be a lot. I mean, in general, this video is going to be a lot, so fair warning right now that this will be some of the worst things I will be talking about. So please feel free to skip past this if you feel too disgusted to watch this. So, as I've mentioned, I was in a server that included him and Keith in it. This allowed me to see what Shannon was doing and, well, why don't we just read a few things he said to Keith. I was about to put our moaning clip of us, but I got lazy. Very disturbing that you have a moaning clip of y'all together. About yesterday, I do not know why I did it. Maybe I was so involved that I showed my body with a little bit of hesitation. I'm full of embarrassment about what I did, but I think it's worth it at the end. I never felt accepted until now. You showed me how you really care about me. I love you, Keith. My liking so different. How am I this attached yet so in love and adore your body, Rose? You're 14 and God, I get that. Thinking about your body is building up on my mind that I want to touch myself, baby. I adore your body so much. Again, I want to implore everyone. Shannon was 18 at this time, so I must say this level of relationship was unexpected. I did not see this coming, but well, we're already in this state, and it's kind of part of my dream because, well, you know, I'm super darn naughty and horny. I truly love you, Rose. I do. It may seem that my kink makes it feel like I don't at all. I deeply effing sorry for liking the fact that you getting effed by someone. Now that I thought about it, it looks like I'm selling you to others. I genuinely want to slap myself right now. I apologize, Keith. If I didn't see and wasn't aware about what you feel about this kinks, I apologize to myself for not being myself for crap. That I didn't realize I'm damaging my own relationship. F you, me. Oh, Lord have mercy. I know it looks childish, but I had to say it. You recognize your own childish nature. Also, tell me, is this statement I made true? And by the way, this is Keith saying this. Your likings have also changed. You preferred me to be with someone else. Happy, because you know you aren't perfect enough to keep me and yourself happy. That is true, Rose. I knew it. You wanted me to be happy with a fictional character because you know you aren't perfect enough. Is this reason why you like cuckolding? This might be complicated to explain, the fact that I'm not perfect enough for you. It also applies to my sexual activity as well. Assuming if I can't be perfect for you, then maybe someone else can give you happiness or even pleasure to be called perfect. Perfect doesn't exist in this planet. Everyone has their own downsides. Like me, cuckolding doesn't apply in real life, only for fictional, which doesn't really affect us that much. Can we make Dave X Christine? I just love the fact they are together in Faniverse. I want to see them F. I don't even know what the hell you're trying to say there, but yeah. And then there's this, where Keith was at one point called Shannon's that bag. I also genuinely just don't want to read all of this. I really don't. But just know that they're basically talking about very, very graphic sexual stuff, and that Shannon is describing in big detail about what he wants to do with Keith. And unfortunately, here too. So yeah, that's basically why it's hard for me to understand what love actually is. I'm keeping that in mind because I actually thought the same thing. Not much, but sex can literally solve most of the problem, but some aren't. I knew this was the answer to why it's so hard for me to comfort or love, but I didn't want you to be disgusted by it. Please, it's not one-sided. I agree with that statement, but keep in mind there's sometimes there's sometimes person isn't in the mood. That's why I'm trying to show love in a different way. It's just so hard. So saying I'll do that to you will fix things. Stop saying that, please. I know it doesn't. It just makes me feel more guilty. Yeah, so if that wasn't bad enough for y'all folks, I just also wanted to inform y'all that Shannon also sent his dirty underwear to Keith. And oh yeah, he also thought it would be a good idea to send Keith nudes of himself, as well as I guess you can say splooge shots to Keith as well. So you can see why I was very concerned about the whole thing. I was going to put all of this into a document so we can take it to the authorities so that Shannon could have gotten in trouble, but ultimately I was kicked out by Keith, which I will talk more on that later. We can confirm that Shannon went into servers privately with Keith from sources like Inksanity and another anonymous source of mine.
Like BombasticHype, aka Keith, and Shannon. Those two were pretty constant throughout all of the private servers, because like the private servers remade a dozen times over, and they were pretty much a constant in them.
This was like I think Mirth and Zoe ran off to another server with Keith and Shannon. And like later on I was invited in that server, and with some other people as well. Like majority of them were adults, except me and Keith. We were both minors, and the rest were adults, which I found weird.
All of this to mention that even Shannon was well aware of Keith's age. He would go on making F&F mods of them, which was disturbing in itself given how we know Shannon feels about Keith. Shannon would constantly hint about his horniness all the time.
I used to be Shannon's second-hand man. Okay, with Mr. Sunday, he has been really possessive and manipulative with Keith. I have been in a group calls in the Facebook chat with him multiple times where he had this person named Raina and him and Keith. And he was talking about how much he loved Keith and how much more, and it was getting creepy. He even had a mental breakdown in front of me in a fucking Call of Duty Modern Warfare Warzone match. Like, goddamn, you're really crying over a minor when I'm trying to get some kills on Warzone with you? Jesus Christ, bro. Like, oh my god. Like, the first time when I first saw the SFW art made by one of the people, it was because a kid said, oh, I made this art. I don't think it's good. I don't know. It feels kind of bad. I'm like, okay, let me see it. Full-blown porn of them and Shannon having sex. They also sent me a video of how Keith giving Shannon a blowjob.
Not even just towards Keith, but as I read earlier, Shannon had a thing for cuckolding. Shannon would want Keith to make art of them with their other friends in very promiscuous manners.
He also clarified to me that the self-cess drawings were self-cess, and I corrected myself on that and took accountability for that. That's that. They still did. It was still CP though, so it was bad nonetheless. Because it was apparently like Shannon and Keith and not Keith's OC.
Oh, and yeah, just to top this all off with a very unsweet, unsavory, disgusting cherry, I guess. Shannon is also apparently a zoophile as well.
What the fuck? No!
But I'm not done yet. There is one thing I do gotta say that's very important. Keith streamed Shannon's browser one time. They were both sharing browsers. They're like, they saw Shannon's search history, and it was full of zoo porn. It's like a white woman getting fucked by a rabbit. Not an anthropomorphic rabbit, like an actual rabbit.
And not only that, but Keith had even told me that Shannon was interested in yet another minor in early 2022, which would have happened after Shannon and Keith had broken up. That was also 14, whose name I will block out for the sake of keeping their identity safe. Yeah, so it's clear to me that Shannon has a lot that's messed up with him. And I feel like he's gotten away with so much stuff that happened way too easily. He even still posts to this day, which really makes me sick considering that, get this, he made his own victim write the apology for him. We see that Keith went ahead and told Shannon he would write an apology for him, and sure enough, that's exactly what Keith did. Speaking of which, I think we have to talk about the next person here, which is Keith, or was once better known as BombasticHype or Zendy or Lando, however you prefer to call them. Now, I should note that I feel really mixed about talking about Keith in this video. At the end of the day, they have done a lot of stuff that is disgusting and disturbing, but they are still a minor that I believe can learn from their mistakes. If you're unsure of what I'm talking about, it may be worth checking out the doc on them that was co-created by someone I talk with here, T5, since it will be brought up briefly. I'll try and link it down below if I'm able to find it in the description. Though Keith is definitely not innocent by any means either, I should point out. The reason why Keith is being brought up, at least regarding me, is that frankly, I don't like being called a liar, as I pointed out earlier in the video. As I mentioned, I tried to help Keith with their problems with Shannon that I essentially was forced into. Look, I didn't necessarily mind helping out, but when I was asked by Zoey to help with the document, I felt it would be a disservice to otherwise say no, because I knew about the situation and I felt like Shannon got away with a lot of stuff. So I kind of felt like I needed to say yes and to really help Keith out here. However, it seems that Keith was under the impression that I was dragging my feet with the document intentionally. I'm going to bring back up the image of where I went over everything I wanted to do regarding the Shannon situation, and I want y'all to note the 07/26/2022 date. I was still in college then. In fact, this was my last year of college. So I was under a lot of pressure since I not only was trying to finish college, 2 different degrees, working an internship, and 3 different college jobs. I genuinely had my hands full. Of course, with that humble brag aside, I bring this up because when someone named Callio confronted Keith about this, Keith essentially slandered my name, saying that the reason why I wasn't working on the document was because I had learned that they were in contact with Shannon temporarily, and that my school was an excuse for not working on the document. So again, let's backtrack a little bit. Yes, I knew that Keith was in contact with Shannon on Facebook, with Shannon being the gray messages and Keith being the blue messages. And in retrospect, I really should have told Keith to stop all contact with Shannon because that was just putting them in more potential danger. However, as you can see by my screenshots, I never once stated that I never wanted to work on it due to them being in contact with Shannon. Instead, I actually wanted to use this as further evidence that Shannon was, once again, getting into contact with Keith and being stalkerish with them. Keith even admitted more stuff to me that Shannon wanted to do to them, like performing an essay on them while they slept, and how their virginity was for Shannon to take and only for Shannon to take. So, of course, more than anything at this point, I felt like I had to really give it my best effort to help Keith here. I was even organizing the Google Doc by categories by what he had done, which apparently transphobia was just another thing he had committed as well. At this point, it's like, what hasn't Shannon done on the worst ever human being list now? Back to my original point. The document eventually gets deleted. I found out that Zoey, who was the original document owner, actually deleted it. I was extremely upset when this happened, but I didn't let Zoey know this because I didn't want him to think I was gathering suspicion against him. But more on that again, fortunately, later. Anywho, when I pointed this out to Keith, they were very nonchalant about it. So I figured I could take my time on it as I was dealing with school and had very little time to do much else. You can see this from my uploads on my YouTube alone. However, once I heard that a document came out about Keith, which I didn't fully read on by that time, I felt bad for them because I figured Shannon had influenced much of Keith's drawings of minors. But as I found out, Keith had a habit of this.
Then he started to open up about his sexual life and all that stuff. Then there was me. Everyone in Project Swirl was like, your average horny guy and stuff. Besides Keith, they were like the most horny. Besides maybe 901. At least Keith expressed it a lot, that's for sure.
Keith sort of did drew some stuff before that with their other partner, which I have met before. His name was Akuma, who was also pretty old. Keith really dating older guys, which left me always concerned. Now, I don't want Keith to hate me, but like, I think I have to get this out to begin with. They did date some guys that were older than him on purpose, but then again, they were also living in the Filipinos, which during the time, I think before the age consent got upgraded to 16, it was basically 12.
And apparently Keith didn't take too kindly to this either, because they told me to shut up and blocked me. When I tell y'all I was flabbergasted, I genuinely had no idea what was going on at this point until Callio told me why they had blocked me apparently. I was disappointed to say the least because I really wanted to help Keith out because of how badly Shannon treated them. But as it turns out, Keith needs a little bit more help than I could actually provide for them.
Keith one time was like depressed and shit and suicidal or something, and so he like drank or something, then came in chat all drunk and stuff. Then I like called him and stuff and told him to go to sleep, and then he wakes up in the call, and then that leads to like an 8-hour call or something, and then after that call, like called again and stuff, and that would lead to like a 12-hour I think call. DMs, but there was this one time where Keith did send unprompted SH to me or self-harm to me. There was one time where he did that. But thankfully he did delete, but that still definitely happened, I know that.
They even went as far as to consider people like Mirth and Zoey their best friends.
Like a final talk and stuff. And it being that same GC where they said that they consider Zoey and Mirth, they're like closest friends and stuff, or like his true friends.
Scarily enough, a polyamorous relationship was even considered amongst Shannon, Keith, Mirth, and Zoey at one point.
And Zoe tried creating a polyamorous relationship with them. From what I was told from Keith, like they said they tried making a polyamorous relationship.
Which now, seeing this video of all them playing Minecraft.
Fuck, there's a lot of lava.
This is a lot of fire.
Bunny.
Yeah? Okay, I got two. Okay, I got two.
It makes you wonder how deep these four truly went. Even now, Keith has been displaying alarming behaviors, like being verbally and mentally abusive to their old friends.
I didn't want to deal with that shit. It's like they're on their own with changing. Was also just not going to be in contact with a bad person in general. Yeah, some sort of happy ending. Not with Keith though, that's for sure. Not with me and Keith. Because like they still try and get my attention to this day. They are fucking, I know they say the opposite, but they're fucking obsessed with me, bruh. So then I unfriend them, and then they go on this mega message edit. So I'm gonna read these edits. I don't know what I was, but it's inseparable. Well, this isn't it. Also, don't try. This was after I unfriended them. They had blocked me. I gave you a chance, but when I had added you, but you keep unfriending me every time. Which, I'm unfriending them for a reason. I don't want to stay in contact with a bad person. If you really want to fucking talk, at least reconsider what will happen after that. Thanks and bye. Free 10 a.m. Philippine time zone, I think is what that is. 5/8. And then they unblocked me 5 days later. Unblocked, don't fuck this chance up. 11:47 p.m. May 13. And then, here comes this edit. You're fucked up. Don't ever try and hurt my friends, because I will find a way for you to regret it. Like, Keith obviously has done a lot of shit to me. Like, some shit that isn't even public. So, like, obviously don't want to see people speaking to someone who abused me a lot. I guess we could say abused, yeah.
I'm worried for Keith, to say the least. I genuinely want a redemption for them, considering how young and impressionable I believe they are. Keith, I know more than likely you will view this or hear about this video, so I'm asking you to please just remove yourself from Mirth and Zoey and to genuinely apologize for your actions. Going after people like Baby Blue using Shannon and Mirth as evidence really doesn't help your case here, and it's just creating more drama that you really don't need. Seriously, I want to see you get better and out of the clutches of Mirth and Zoey, because they are definitely not good people, nor your best friends. Speaking of which, now I guess we should talk about Mirth. Lord have mercy. That's all I can say as a phrase right now. This better be the last video I talk about them, because I'm getting tired of this at this point. I know I obviously put out what I create, but at the end of the day, since I've been talking about this since from the beginning, I believe it's my duty to try and inform everybody what's going on with Mirth, again, since I originally made the video about her. But at this point, guys, I'm not gonna lie, I think this genuinely might be my last video on them, regardless of what happens. Because Mirth is like saying he who must not be named at this point.
The mere mention of his name causes things to break.
Kodomodachi.
Don't keep saying that!
Every time I mention her, something comes crumbling down. I'm going to tell you all 3 big things regarding Mirth. I'll be giving you context on the old Ace Attorney victim, her apology and why it's frankly BS, and how she is yet again, or at least very recently, was in contact with the minor of the FNF situation. Let's start with the Ace Attorney minor. I'm going to reiterate what I said on a Twitter thread that I made about this. Well, I said I wasn't going to make another video on Mirth, and I'm going to stick by that unless something major happens. Newsflash, it did. However, I feel as though I should give an update on this situation, hopefully for the last time. Recently, by the same credible source I was given info from regarding the Ace Attorney victim, I was given even more info and context of the situation. It has come to my attention that I need to clarify some things regarding the Ace Attorney victim she groomed. Not only does this new evidence clarify some things, but it helps give perspective on some things I didn't fully look into / know at the time. The source gave me more info that shows that Mirth did in fact want to date this individual romantically at that. Essentially, Mirth, or Cosmos as she went by in this picture, she has gone by this name on her channel at 1.2, stated that she was married to an individual, name is removed to protect the minor, which was the 13-year-old boy. This was due to the fact that she was a part of an RP server in a Brazilian Ace Attorney community Discord server where people would RP as family of sorts. There used to be a bot called Family Bot that the community would use to RP with. Mirth would RP as a person named Rikugo, which, sorry if I butchered the name, I guess, in the server. To add clarification, as people have pointed out to me that the screenshot I used in my video, she states that she likes your grandfather to the source. The grandfather in this case was the minor, as he was RPing as a grandfather in the server. This source was also a part of the family unit of the RP server, as he was the grandchild of the RP. Mirth stated that the whole family knew about the relationship other than the source at the time. Most of the family were around the ages of 12 to 15 years old at the time, with Mirth being one of the few adults there. She decided that an RP marriage was not enough and wanted to pursue something even more with the boy. A colleague of the source tried to warn people in the server about this, but she ended up manipulating everyone else into defending her actions, as many of them were minors. She then dated the minor for real this time, for at least 3 months, and starts basically stating that if this continues, this isn't some sort of joke, implying that she is falling in love with him. Furthermore, she states that they might find a way as friends or something beyond that, in terms of potentially meeting up with him since they are long distance. She eventually came back early 2022 after the second grooming became public. She then came back apparently to say hi to her old friends from the first server, the Ace Attorney one. Since they learned about the new grooming incident, they essentially said that she was not welcome there and argued with her. However you want to spin it, Mirth has admitted here that she wanted to take things further with the 13-year-old and wants to essentially meet up with him, which goes way beyond a simple RP, even though that this is still gross to begin with, as an adult shouldn't be RPing with a minor in that nature regardless. This proves that Mirth does in fact date minors to date them, and that they aren't simply platonic if she wants to meet with them and go beyond friendship. This isn't a mistake, as she claims in her newest apology video. She genuinely wanted to date the minor in this community and wasn't forced to do so. She claimed she was in her video. This is why I can't accept Mirth's apology. She had deflected the FNF minor and has not even acknowledged the incident overall. I will leave this information in the public's hand to do with as they please. Speaking of her apology video, big props to Kodo the Dodo for re-uploading her now deleted apology video. Wonder why. If you want to see the full video, check out the video that I'll put in the description, and I'll briefly show some parts that are just blatant hypocrisy or lies at this point.
I will not apologize for something I haven't done.
Yeah, no apologizing. Or, in this case, deleting your whole apology is kind of your thing now, isn't it?
What I learned from everything is don't go near problematic kids or adults. That's it. Nothing else.
Don't go near problematic kids, huh? Really funny considering that you usually put yourself in situations where you are near minors.
Well, about Kono, like, every time, like, this was, like, when they had a huge-ass argument. Like, they made a server for it. They all split up into two large groups. Like, Mirth, like, ended up making a group chat for, like, filled with minors, including me. And saying that, oh, well, Zoe's the bad guy, this and that. Like, I'm the good guy. You guys should trust me and be on my side. And such like that. Mirth, like, making a group chat, like, filled with minors. Like, she was, like, the only adult there.
But, hey, please continue.
Allow me to speak about this certain kid who emailed me one time. This kid was in my emails asking me to be his girlfriend and practically asking to be groomed. Of course, as a sane person, I refused and sent the entire B-movie script to him. Come on, it's funny.
Yeah, it's so funny, Mirth. Though it's really not that funny when you realize that she essentially assured the minor that the relationship was okay.
I will also say this was all going on as I was an admin of Flippy's server, and I was a moderator of Kodo's servers. Because of that, Zoe trusted me due to my status, made me a moderator. Then during the destruction of the server, I was upgraded to admin. By all this, I feel like I have PTSD from Kodo. I never want to, get back together with them again. I remember very distinctly in those screenshots where Kodo confessed the two of them getting together. She framed this in a very skewed perspective to make herself sound better. But she was saying, and I think I told you this, she basically admitted that she into thinking their relationship was okay, even though he knew it wasn't. Like, she essentially said something along the lines of, he was worried about our age gap, but, I reassured him and I said, it's fine.
Turkey Tom. He has a pretty inaccurate way of addressing scandals, doesn't know how to let certain situations rest, and he was once racist and allowed anti-Semitic content in his channel in a single video before.
Funny you called out Turkey Tom when there's proof of you saying the N-word multiple times before, and your own friends calling you out for your transphobia.
Yeah, I never really talked about this much because I basically held my mouth shut because, like, how a lot of this stuff is just beyond wrong. Laura did do a lot of things. She's very political. She's transphobic. She's racist. She's also a person that is very hypocritical. She's also a liar. a backstabber, and loads of things more. She's also a thief, which she's, well, okay, for the server thing, that's a little petty, but it still fits. She kind of did steal fucking something that belonged to me, which I basically gave her permission to use only for one thing. She basically nearly stole my whole friends. She basically just used me, and basically used me some kind of toy, but not for sexual pleasure, just as a fucking, like, speaker system or as a spy.
If you're wondering if the kid is fine, yes, he's fine. The most recent news I've gotten about him, despite having cut off contact with him, was through one of my close friends. He is living a healthy life like nothing happened.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna cut you off there. Because I found out that yet again. If you are all wondering how I found this out, I was actually Steam friends with Zoey at one point, which I will explain more later. And from time to time, I check my friends' activities just to see what they're up to. And lo and behold, there was Zoey Mirth hanging out with the minor Kodo had groomed from the FNF community in the call, hanging out with them. This further proves to me why I simply can't trust Mirth. She's been known to lie multiple times, and you can go and chat with these minors away from prying eyes.
And would only explain herself in within an FNF Roblox roleplay server, and as I don't remember who, but someone said that was so that the conversation couldn't be logged, like, in the GC, and that never occurred to me until then that was probably the reason.
The real kicker is how I know you play Fortnite, which in itself obviously isn't that bad, but now that I know that Keith is apparently your best friend, I can only assume that you, Zoey, and Keith are all playing Fortnite together alone in different calls.
Kodo used to be playing Fortnite in the server, which we know that Fortnite's dominated by an entire, like, online, like, it's the jackpot for online children. Coming from this and like now learning more about Zoey and Mirth and what happened with that, especially knowing that Mirth was in the Ace Attorney fandom, that was a fucking that was a revelation on my own.
You would constantly give sob stories to those that would listen, and sometimes it would work, but this time, I don't think anyone is going to want to listen to you.
A few days after, like, the fallout, Kodo started her, kinda, I guess, next manipulation tactic, in retrospect, was the next manipulation tactic of hers, and that was to go on this kind of sob story of how, because of my country's age of consent and the fact that I was groomed as a kid as well, I didn't see this as all that wrong. Kind of going for that angle.
You genuinely haven't learned a thing, Kodo, and it's genuinely upsetting. I'm very worried about the progression of your channel, especially into new fandoms like Pizza Tower, because I don't want you to move into a new group of people where minors can be vulnerable. On a side note, I'm especially worried because bigger YouTubers have recognized you and your work, and you even had a staunch supporter who knew what you did too, on top of that, Owuwu as well, which I was disappointed with. There's not much else to say about Mirth except that I'm just not surprised at this point. Just once again though, you've proven to everyone that we cannot trust you. Oh, yeah, should I also mention that you threatened me and my other friend Corpse for exposing you? Yeah, I'm not real keen on forgiving those that threaten my friends and me. Though, considering you were wanting to throw even your little boyfriend, Zoey, under the bus, I'm not surprised. And speaking of Zoey... Zoey is the one whom I'm most disappointed with here, if I'm being honest. There's just so much to talk about Zoey because not much has been discussed about him. This section is especially going to be very interviewee driven because a lot of them have to get their stories about Zoey out there. So I'll be letting them tell their stories a little bit longer in length than the other clips that I've played. I have interviewed 2 people in particular that Zoey has groomed or at least made severely uncomfortable, so they will finally be able to tell their story since they weren't fully able to otherwise. Before that, I feel like I need to give context on Zoey and my situation and where we stood with each other. As Ink tells us, Zoey will often put you in situations where you will feel for him and want to help him out of those situations. But of course, our stance on him has changed significantly.
My protective, younger sibling view of Zoey also add to it because I also didn't want to lose Zoey's trust at the time. Obviously, now my stance on Zoey has completely changed, but at the time, I just had that kind of bond with Zoey that really influenced the way I speak. I'm not saying this to try and justify what I did because I still shouldn't have been I still don't think it was okay for me to do this, but I'm just giving reason why I didn't fight against it immediately. I don't want any of this to come off as an excuse. It was still absolutely wrong on my end. I'm just trying to give some insight as to why.
I want to emphasize that I've never truly trusted Zoey fully, but I did want to believe that things could get better for him. You see, I heard about some of the stuff he did when he was younger, but that was just it. He was a minor, and I was rooting for him to get better. He told me he was going to church-like therapy sessions, and that he was going to get the help he needed. Perhaps I just wanted to believe he would get better, and I was in complete naivete because I wanted to see him get better. But as more and more things came out about Zoey that I uncovered, I simply couldn't stand by him anymore.
Everything was actually pretty chill before what happened with the whole coming out with Zoey and stuff. Zoey kind of slingshotted the server into absolute chaos. Me over here, I was very naive at the time. I was around I want to say around the age of a bit over 13. Yeah, because I didn't know any of this stuff was really okay or not. So I didn't do any of this stuff, don't get me wrong, because I wasn't that kind of person. But I was very young, I was very naive.
He told me at one point that he would stay away from Mirth. That was a lie.
I know throughout this time, there was just a dozen just an unreasonable amount of times that Zoey and Kodo broke up, got together, broke up. Zoey would promise never to get back together. Zoey would recognize Kodo was abusing them, but would get back together anyway, and then break up, get back together, break up, have toxic shit, have Zoey Zoey claiming to feel traumatized from their relationship, then getting back together. The last part of this that I remember was Zoey was claiming that they had PTSD from the relationship and claimed to me, to Corpse, to everyone, that this was finally going to be the last time that they broke up, the very last of their relationship, because Zoey, said, "Oh, I feel just traumatized."
He told me he was going to metaphorically wash his hands of his past and stay on the straight and narrow. That was a lie. He told me he would then keep me updated about Mirth. That was a lie. He only did so after being found out about him, Mirth, and the minor that Mirth groomed playing together, where he proceeded to blame another minor for what happened. He told me he also didn't know Stubby's, a minor he groomed, age, and that essentially it was Stubby's fault for what happened.
I was 12. I had told him the first week that we had known each other, so he was aware, because he told everyone in the friend server that I was 12 as well. And then the other thing, I didn't ask to be put in there. He just added me in there just so I could be able to hang out with him and the others. So I started watching his streams back when Mirth still went by Kodomodachi, however you say it. So I watched his streams, and then like I stopped watching for a while because I had to do school stuff, but I got taken out of school, and this was around like I'd say September or October, and then I just started watching his streams more often, and I made fan art for him a lot. So he contacted me on like Twitter, and then he asked if we wanted to be friends on Discord, and I'm like, sure, okay. So the first week we didn't really talk that much. It was just more me being excited that I was friends with someone I really liked like watching. So a week after, I think I got invited to a server for his friends. Yeah, I think I got invited to the friend server we have, where I don't really talk that much there anymore, but I got invited there shortly after, and then like for a couple of weeks I was like appearing in some of his streams, I think. And then, or one time, not really in calls, just playing games with him. So one time you're doing a stream, or he was doing a stream, and he was like playing Roblox. He got mad at all of us. So after me apologizing and talking to him, we became closer friends, I guess, because he was distancing himself from the others. So through that, we just talked a lot more often than we had before, and it would be like almost every day. So I'd say fast forward a little bit, he showed me what his face looked like. Obviously it wasn't a call, or we didn't really call that much on Discord. We did on Zoom because I didn't have that much I could use. But he showed me his face, and this was a night when he was really tired. This was after I had gotten in trouble for something with my dad, and that's gonna come up in a bit later. But I had gotten in trouble with my dad, and it was like really bad, whatever. But my dad took away the device that I had snuck in to use Discord. So we called on Zoom that night because I was upset after I went back to my mom's house, and it was getting late. He was getting tired. He shows me his face, and he's just staring at me for like 6 seconds, and he doesn't say anything, and then turns his camera back off. So shortly after, he asks me, he just keeps saying feet pics over and over again. Everything I say, he's like, show me feet pics, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of weird. I didn't think much of it back then, but like back last year, because I didn't really care. So fast forward a little bit after a bit of talking, I would play this unblocked version of Friday Night Funkin' on my laptop, and I would sometimes screen share it while we're in calls. So this escalated from us just playing normal matches to us doing quote-unquote challenges, which I'll explain in a second. I'll explain it now. It's basically where I would play a song, and if I got a certain amount of misses, I would do something. But before this, I told Zoey that since I was really unstable and like a little bit obsessed with him. Well, it got worse over time, but like at the time I wasn't as obsessed, but I was like I was just really excited because, he was like my best friend to me. So I told him if he were to ask me to show him something, I would show him anything, except for like, being without clothes on. And I regret saying that. Because like he took it to heart, and he's like, oh, so he asked me, like, I don't have the direct quotes, so I'm just saying how I remember. He's like, oh, so if I asked you to show me your ass, you wouldn't? And I said, yeah. Then later that night, we did one of those FNF challenges. But afterwards, he told me to lay down in like a ball type thing, I guess, and then like show him my ass. It wasn't like naked or anything, it was with my clothes on, but still. So I'd have to sit like that for a short amount of time, and then he'll say I can stop. And I don't know why I did this, but this went on for a little bit. But then he stopped doing the challenges, and this was when he was still dating Mirth. Again, Mirth is a bad person, but that's not really okay. So we stopped doing the FNF challenges and just started going straight into that as soon as my grandma went to bed. And then he slowly started like doing this roleplay thing where he would pretend to touch me and stuff, like touch around my waist, and I don't know. I actually don't know. He never like said exactly, but he just said, just pretend I'm touching you, blah, 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 blah. So, and also with the touching thing, it came with him asking me to make sounds and stuff. So one day we were, oh, and then after the thing, he would slowly like progress and like pretending to slam me on my bed, like not like sex. He would pretend like wrestling slam, like he would pretend to like throw me sideways, so he would have me like lay down sideways real quick to pretend he slammed me, and nope, that's something. And then like a couple months later, one day in a call, we were like talking normally, and it was like late, I guess. But he was like, you ever just like put a pillow on your face and then like moan a little bit and then pretend someone's sitting on you? I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, you should try it. I'm like, okay. So he's like, oh, would you want me to try that on you? And I'm like, okay, sure. So basically what he would do is he would have me turn on my camera, have me like laying down, and my camera would be like like right next to my head, and I'll have a pillow with me. So he would pretend to like sit on my face, like smash his ass on my face, and like actually try to suffocate me sometimes, like in like a weird kind of pleasure, I guess. But I went along with it, and he would also ask me to moan, which I did. And then he would start asking me if I could draw that stuff. Or one time before he started asking me, I had drawn it on my own, and then he just started asking me every once in a while. I might have a bit more in the recovered DMs, but because most of those were on digital with this art app I used, but I also had some on paper. I don't know if I have the notebooks, but it might be in the DMs. So then fast forward a little bit to when I finally get my iPad back during summer. So I finally got my iPad back, and I was able to use Discord again. So I got this for at least, I'd say, 2 weeks, and then I got Discord taken away because my dad didn't like me making like sexual jokes and shit. But we would use Discord, right? And he like, I'd say a month before this, before I got Discord back, he started going through these depressive episodes where he would be like, oh my god, this is after Mirth and Zoey broke up, I believe. So he'd be going through these depressive episodes, and he'd be telling me this, like, and he'd be acting like me as a personal therapist. After I got Discord taken away, I told you about that one incident. But directly after, when I got home from summer school that day, he was like, oh, can you do everything I tell you today just to make me feel better? I'm like, okay. Because I was upset. I didn't want him to feel like upset. Like, I wanted him to feel better. Of course I did. He was my best friend at the time, unfortunately. So he did the sitting thing again, which is fucked up. He used the fact that I was like upset just to get what he wanted, essentially. And I'm pretty sure he knew this, because he knew I was unstable. I'm pretty sure Loco told him this, and he still went through it, or still went through with it.
Zoey had lied to me about numerous things, not to mention that he had basically implied that he was going to commit unaliving himself to me. He had multiple victims that I was unaware of, and he would often try to justify his actions to others by spinning tall tales of how he was innocent, but spin in a way where he would say something like, oh, but I'm taking accountability. He even contacted them via Roblox chats. Which reminds me of what Ink said earlier about those chats, and how Mirth would use them to privatize their grooming and to get minors away from public attention. Seems like, unfortunately, Zoey was taking notes from that. He would go on to express unalived thoughts, not just to me, but to multiple people, and even in servers where minors had to comfort him.
Zoey was publicly expressing, suicidal intent within the voice channels, and that's where we really first met.
Zoey got re-added back into the server eventually, and he started to have basically what I want to say a DID mental breakdown in BC. And yes, I was a part of this. In fact, I was a foolish member to have comforted him in this. It was mostly him saying that he didn't remember who he was and maybe some iffy suicide baiting, I want to say.
He would go to groom others and even use them in different capacities to whatever benefit he could.
Pro and Zoey are back together, and I was just like, what? Overall, me being in between their relationship, being their messenger back and forth, and Zoey just, using me, multiple times just to talk to Mirth and shit like that. and like just to get him to talk to Mirth. And like I believe this was like a while, like a few months ago. I don't remember, but like it was in the friend stuff server, and this was before Christmas, like in 2022. Stubby admitted to me saying that Zoey did sexual act like stuff to him, like made them turn their camera on, do like sexual acts and shit like that, and draw sexual shit. I was just like, what the fuck? Like basically Zoey giving them weird requests to do. How I knew Zoey, I met him off another app outside of Discord. That was when before I didn't have Discord. I met him off like a reading website called Wattpad or whatever. And this was like after my birthday. Or I believe during my birthday. And then like after, like a day later after my birthday, I like we messaged each other on that app for a bit. And he was saying that he was becoming 17. I mean, the conversation was normal at first until he mentioned a specific message saying that, oh, well, I'm not intended to be sexual or anything like that, you know. I'm just trying to, you know, be a regular person, just wandering around, making friends and such like that. And I was like, all right, well, that's cool. Well, because I didn't bother much about it, as I didn't think much about it. And this was before I even had Discord. I didn't even have Discord at that time. And he was the one that helped me make a Discord account. So, it's about to be 2 years since I had Discord. And after, like, I got Discord, he added me. I mean, I added him. And then, like, the conversation was pretty normal. It was fine. And then, like, after this was, like, I think it was, like, 3 days after we talked for a bit. Like, he introduced me, like, in a server. No, not 3 days after. This was before the incident happened. Like, he like, invited me to a server with his friends, like, right? It was fine at first. Everything was going fine. Everything was going great. So, like, after that, there was, like, some messages, right? He was, like, shooting me a DM saying, hey, well, there's, like, this NSFW chat, and, like, you know, this and that. And, like, after, this was, like, when I told him my age. Like, I told him my age, like, multiple times. He would saying, like, oh, well, if you send any, don't send any in the server. Like, send them to me personally. And I was like, oh, well, why? He was like, oh, because I don't want anyone to judge you. And I'm just like, oh, well, I'm underage. And he said, oh, well, I'm 16, so that doesn't really matter. And I was like, oh, well, okay. And then, like, I did send him a few, like, NSFW images, not of myself, but, like, of drawings. I didn't draw them, though. But he then, like, was asking, like, oh, hey, can I see, like, you in your underwear and such like that? Since, like, you know, he has, like, some type of fetish, I believe. And I don't know if he still has it, but he said, oh, well, I would like to see you in your underwear, and, like, can I spank you, this and that? And I was like, oh, but I'm underage, though. And as he said, he repeated himself, well, I'm not 18 either, so it doesn't matter. And I was like, oh, okay. But I didn't send him those images, because I never did.
I guess you could even say I was fooled by this because I thought he was getting better before I found out about all that he had done. And I had stuck my neck out for him to get him back into contact with his old friends that had dumped him, like Crit VA. For someone who needs therapy, it's weird to note that he would even take roles of being a therapist in situations that involved minors.
No. I don't have as much, like, history and stuff with Zoey as I do with Keith, but Zoey was too... He gave me a lot of bad vibes, we'll just say that. It's Keith's server and all that. And then Keith gave him the therapist role, which was a role under my role. So, like, I can still ban Zoey if I wanted to, but like, obviously I just wouldn't be able to.
Zoey knew who to go after, and he might even still have explicit images from these minors.
Zoey said he was how he's not bad. He's a decent guy. Then you catch him doing shit like dating at 12. Muchos gracias, señor. Which that made things even worse for the situation, because Zoey said he was because Stubbs stopped hanging out with him during all of this, and they kept contacting Stubbs via Roblox chat system, which honestly, how you can even do that in that system is honestly just beyond shocking to me.
And for a fact, I know that Zoey indeed probably still has those images of CP. He knew definitely who to go after. Like, definitely, like...
Even before all of this, Zoey apparently still had problems with his ex.
A lot of people were against Zoey for this when the X came out. I think it was just some, I don't remember what exactly Zoey did to her, but I know it was a lot of just irrational, emotional, like, actions. That's all I really remember.
If somehow you are all still unconvinced that Mirth, Zoey, Keith, and by extension Shannon are all connected, I have something to show you.
Yeah, they all. No, which is way funnier is that they all basically kind of turn against each other. Like, oh, Keith, we gotta do this on Zoey. I think I still have the file on my Google Drive. I can find this video. It was basically how Zoey tried to, not Zoey, like how Mirth was trying to expose Zoe, and like, it was so bad. Like, oh my god, it was animated by Keith too. It was also animated by Laura by some parts. It was like a really shitty collab. It was like a fucking animation meme.
Zoey, at this point, man, you only have yourself to blame here, as I told you in my last message. I now see why you were worried about being in a Turkey Tom video. I wanted so bad for you to be on the right path of things. I tried really hard to steer you in the direction of therapy, but I see that you are very similar to Mirth in the way that you haven't shown us any sort of change. And now I'm honestly more concerned with you interacting with minors more than Mirth, which is definitely saying something. To leave off Zoey's story, I will be reading off an anonymous source's experience with Zoey, as they knew him fairly well. My experience with Zoey, Sunny, whatever name he translates into a different language he doesn't actually speak. Zoe and I met through one of his streams. This was after Kodo/Mirth was exposed. It was his first stream and it was left for dead. I had the game, so I asked to join, and a couple of streams later, he asked for my Discord and invited me to a server where he had all his friends. To this day, he acts like I wouldn't shut up about him inviting me, even though he asked me first. Zoe didn't whatsoever ask my age. I was 12 at the time. Currently, I'm 14, but for a good while of knowing him, I was 12. For a while, Zoe was hard to get in direct contact with because I just became friends with him, but still, he would always get in a call with everyone for an hour or two and disappear to talk to Kodo/Mirth in private. They always did weird crap like name their VC bedroom and stuff like that. The only people who were ever in there outside of those two were Keith and Shannon, which is weird knowing Keith was very young in the middle of those three who would love to add in 445 at the end of their usernames. Zoe was either a butt or mildly nice guy towards everyone besides Mirth / Kodo, who he was corny as hell to. Whenever we played Left 4 Dead, he was always close to her and acting like she couldn't take care of herself. Still, I didn't really know anyone else in the server besides Kodo and Shannon, which stopped me from becoming friends with everyone, leading me to only becoming close with Zoe. A bit after I joined, Zoe and Kodo / Mirth had a breakup, one of many. Zoe admitted he considered doxing Kodo / Mirth. I dislike Kodo / Mirth, but to even consider doxing them over some breakup was just disgusting. They got back together less than a week later because predators like to hunt together. Nothing much happened for a while until eventually some pathetic little drama started. A friend of mine named Mizzy, who was really close with Zoe, Shannon, Kodo, and Keith, did something he regretted to this day. But I'll tell you right now, it was something not too serious. But they all just exiled him and unfriended him. I kept them, meaning Mizzy in this case, for y'all unaware, in my contacts, but I was almost pressured into removing them. I'm glad I didn't because they have become better now. But I'm mentioning this because the thing he did was so little. But Zoe still took it seriously and got rid of him and basically told everyone else to unfriend him. This is incredibly ironic as due to recently, Zoe has falsely accused one of my friends for sexual harassment and then started hitting on his ex while dating Mirth again. Zoe always talked to me like he cared, despite not really caring. He always made people feel like he was close with them, just for him to ignore them for a couple months and come back whenever the other people he was hanging out with were either ditched or found out how terrible he is. Before I unfriended Zoe, I basically asked him if we were still genuinely friends, and he went on a tangent about how we are, and then proceeded to ignore me for Mirth until I eventually blocked him. Overall, Zoe is just a terrible, manipulative person who would make you feel like you have a connection with him. But in reality, if you're not doing well mentally, you'll think Zoe is some saint and a savior. But once you're doing well, he either leaves you before you can see his true colors, or you do see his true colors and he immediately throws you under the bus. With that all said and done, I hope you can see now how all of these people are connected. One way or another, they have all done something that has involved minors, and I wouldn't be surprised if somehow they all still had connections with each other. Disappointed is the word of the day here, folks. With these group of people, I just hope and pray these individuals somehow, some way get the help they need. But I'm afraid the damage has been done. Regardless, I'm glad I was able to get all of the victims and other people's stories out there as intended. Hopefully, we don't have to deal with them again, but now we know how some of these individuals tend to repeat themselves. So I guess from here, only time will tell what will happen. Big shout out to everyone who helped me with the video, and well, let's just hope for the best, everyone.
Folks, if you ever become friends with them, please be aware they are not the best of people, especially Mr. Sunday. Keep him away from kids, especially little girls, especially trans little girls, like not like male to female, like female to male. That's why he mostly dated Keith. keep your pet rabbit away from Shannon Sunday.